Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Illumineers Quest podcast, where we talk everything Lorcana. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jacob.
And thanks for coming on this journey with us. Okay, the topic today is pretty straightforward, right?
Absolutely.
Rise of the Floodborn launch weekend, what we did, how we played, thoughts on the set so far, just kind of everything chapter 2, right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We're pretty pumped, so.
Yeah, here we go, man. It was an exciting weekend.
Long time coming. I mean, if we've had releases now since, mid-September, and it's finally here.
Yeah.
I mean, the last couple weeks have been nonstop.
Been a good time, man.
So we're going to just get everything chapter 2 this time. So with that said, let's just go ahead and get into it. As always, you can follow us at YouTube and watch our unboxings and the streams that we've been doing, opening all of our stuff at Illumineers Quest on YouTube. You can shoot us questions at LorcanaPod on Twitter, or our email is also lorcanapod@gmail.com. We're trying to get into some TikTok game. We're trying some stuff out over there. So if you're on TikTok, you can find us at Illumineers Quest there as well. And then if you are on YouTube listening to the podcast, you can follow us on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or any of the other major podcast networks. And so, yeah, thanks for all the support. And if you want to find us on other channels, that's where you can. With that said, let's get into it. So questions/comments from listeners. We had one from the stream that I thought was kind of interesting, especially since we're talking about some of the changes that the game has evolved from now with the Chapter 2 release. And it is from Luca. And he says, what are the thoughts on having different number of copies of a card you can have in your deck, meaning more or less than 4 copies? The main point he made was, would it be good to have more variety in the decks versus 4 copies of 15 different cards, which gets you to that 60? And what do we think? I think that's pretty standard. I don't know if you've been into any other TCGs or not. We haven't, but I do know that that's a pretty standard rule. You definitely don't have to go by that. There are definitely decks that we've built where you have 2 or 3 copies of certain cards, depending on maybe they're non-inkable, and so you don't want to just overload yourself with a bunch of non-inkables in your deck, or if it's a really late in the game, like an 8 or 9 cost card, maybe you don't have 4 copies of that then either. So I kind of like that consistency. I think we've got enough changes that we don't necessarily need to change that too.
Yeah, I think it's pretty perfect for at least my standards. I think it also has to do, in my eyes, with acquiring cards, like the legendaries especially.
Yeah.
If I Rapunzel's $50,
back
pop.
up to 50.
So I'd much rather pay $200 for a playset than $300, $400 for a playset. So
I think it's a perfect balance of consistency for the game too. I think if you go to 2 or 3, you have to put a bunch more cards in your deck that may or may not really have any value, and so it makes it a lot more of a burden to build a cohesive deck. But then on the other side, if you are spending, or you are putting 5 or 6 in your deck, to your point, I don't know, is there a world where there's, 1 card that you can just overpower your opponents with, and so you have 10 of them in your deck? I just, again, it doesn't create enough, then you don't have the variation. So I think you're right in that sweet spot, and I think they're changing the meta in enough different ways too, where you don't have to really tweak the rules like that per se to get a different experience.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that was one, and then he also asked about a Chapter 1 versus Chapter 2 set on the podcast, and we're definitely going to have a full episode devoted to that, so just wanted to shout out and say thanks for the questions there, but you will hear that episode at a later date, I guess, right? Okay, so yeah, with that one, let's get into the card of the week. Neither one of us have really talked about this, so do you have one you want to say off the top of your head, or do you want me to go?
I've got one, absolutely.
Go for it.
Beast Relentless. I know.
The Emerald. So
the Emerald Legendary, but the second Emerald Legendary Beast that we have,
which is crazy because there is one in the first set too. Yeah. So run it down. It's a 6 cost, 4 strength, 5 willpower. Quests for 2.
Quests for 2, and its ability is whenever an opposing character is damaged, you may ready this character.
And there's not the caveat that it can't quest the rest of this turn.
It is by far, it has the most potential out of any card in the game right now, in my opinion, for how much it can do. I've played a few games, and I've quested for 8. I've quested for 12. It's absolutely incredible. And I know there's some people that don't like it as much as I do. It was one of the cards, actually both the Beast cards, the Selfless Protector and Relentless Beast, I like a lot. I actually use them together. But I don't know, what's your view?
No, I'm kind of on the. I agree. I think it was one of my favorite ones to begin with. I think that at the high levels of play, it might be relatively easy to deal with. I feel like people are going to be ready to deal with it and deal with it. But that being said, I think if you have a threat that it's as big as that, then maybe your other pretty big threats, like, Tinkerbell Giant Fairy or the new Cinderella or any of the other, Emerald cards that can quest for a ton, don't become the focus then. And so that allows them to kind of stay on the board and continue going. So I like it. I do think it's a lot. They have the aerial Who's It collector in Chapter 1, and we had a guy in our league that played it a lot to try to get that engine running. And it definitely worked from time to time, but you have to play ink for that engine to work. On this, you just have to challenge. So if you have people on the board, then it works. So I like it. I like it a lot better than the aerial. I mean, it is legendary, but I'm interested in it too, and we'll definitely get into this a little bit in the future, or in the later parts of this episode on what we're kind of playing and what we want to, what our ideas are. And I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I think they've both changed from both of our sides. So.
Oh, 100%. And also, just one side note, the 5 willpower is actually really awesome. Like, it can not, direct removal like Dragonfire and stuff like that, but like, it can survive grab your swords, it can survive fire the cannon, smash.
Or it could, if you're in a really big pinch, challenge.
I've also used it one time for that as well. I think it's just very versatile as well.
Yeah,
so
it is for sure. So what's on news, what's on our mind, league recap, all that stuff. I think that's kind of just like the main topic for this episode. So we can just kind of get into
the 13th legendary that they revealed. Ray.
Don't get the podcast people onto the hype train that you're devoting to the stream viewers as well.
Just facts.
You didn't make that card of the week. That wasn't your card of the week, so you already lost the Ray credibility from all of the stream viewers.
I don't usually make legendaries, like, besides this one, which I'm using a lot, but like that one, like, I don't even know if I should use it. It's too great. Like, I don't know. Is it worthy? Am I worthy of playing Ray?
Considering I have like 12 copies of Ray, yes, you're worthy.
I don't think you are worthy, so that might be something you need to check yourself out on.
That's a fair point. I clearly don't get the Ray hype, and so I just don't get the chance to play him, I suppose. But here, I'm scrolling through my app. I actually cataloged every single thing I got from stream, and I'll tell you how many copies of Ray I got, because he's just a common. There's nothing special about him as much as you want to go on and on about it. I have 10 copies of Ray.
Pascal was the 13th legendary of Chapter 1. Ray is the 13th legendary.
All right, that's fair. 2. That's fair. Team Ray. Okay, so I think this weekend was night and day different than the first one, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I mean, like, launch experience.
Yeah, it was. I want to hear your initial thoughts, and then I'll kind of...
So, a lot of hot and cold, I would say, I guess. I mean, it was a lot of fun. Not that anything was really bad. I would say, and I'll give you the, I guess, top level notes here. Is obviously we were extremely lucky. We got a ton of stuff between your whole family that plays and myself. We were able to get a bunch of stuff to open and to trade and to try to build all of our decks with. So first off, extremely fortunate there, and we understand that we're in a place where we luckily have a good store and we are able to buy that much. But anyways, yeah, so really great that we were able to get all the stuff day one and open it all. If you joined the stream, thank you. If you're curious at what we opened and want to hang out and just watch us open some stuff, we streamed the entire thing.
There's some crazy pulls in there.
So there are some good pulls. With that said, I got the random error discard card.
So weird.
Which is wild. I mean, I know that we were all kind of freaking out about it at the time. I would really just want an enchanted at this point. I mean, yeah. I would prefer an enchanted. I'm trying to sell it. That is one card I will be selling because I want to complete a few more play sets. But had a lot of fun. We haven't played each other yet because we opened and you had a party to go to and you're also moving, and so there's just a lot going on where we haven't been able to like sit down and play yet. But
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so we haven't unfortunately gotten time to play yet, but I think we've both spent so much time just like deck theory crafting.
Yeah, because I just think a lot of things were overrated. I think going into Chapter 2, I just think a lot of cards, a lot of play styles were overrated.
Give me high level. I mean, we don't have to get into it because we'll definitely do a full deep dive on some of the meta stuff. But what are you when you say overrated? What are your top overrated?
Mostly like Pabby decks and Prince John.
I would agree with both of those too. I haven't really dove deep into the Pabby side of it yet. I think that there are much better Sapphire like meta decks that are already kind of popping up that are going to take the reins for the Sapphire side. I did post a couple days ago that my Prince John deck is terrible and I'm reworking it. I've gone down that route and I have had some minor success with it. It's very hard to find like a good balance between the discard that Prince John gives you to disrupt your opponent versus developing your own stuff. And so I think it'll be cool. I think it would be really annoying to play against, but I don't think it's like stupid broken like we thought it would be. So yeah, I can't argue with either of those takes for sure. What about you? What are your thoughts? How are you feeling about everything?
I don't think the hype was still there. It just wasn't near the level of chapter 1. I think just overall, just thinking of like the overall hype.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely different this go around. I mean we're in it. We've definitely like we've built a community here now. This like we live and breathe this. It's not brand new.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean I don't think anytime you have a sequel, the sequel's never as hype as the first one, right?
Unless it's Empire Strikes Back. But moving on. I just think like I don't know, like the different play styles I think haven't been as, from at least what I've seen, as, and maybe it's, this is still the first few days of it.
When you've mainly played like in person with your family too, though, so you're also drawing a lot of those experiences from those rounds.
And so we just went to a little like kind of
league day, but it was buy 6 boosters, play with the cards. It's not constructed, it's like open play. I don't remember the verbiage on that one. I need to get good, but
sealed.
Sealed, you're right. Yeah, so we played a sealed event with the 6 boosters we bought from the event.
And I was talking to quite a few players there, and it just seemed like, and even talked to a few, it just seemed like a lot of people are just using upgraded chapter 1 upgraded chapter 1 archetypes,
which those will definitely stick around, because I think that if you have a good deck, more stuff isn't going to make it not good. It's just going to make you need to tweak it.
Yeah, and maybe we see a few new really new and good archetypes pop up with maybe like a damaged deck, something to that effect.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see some of that. I mean, as I've said on here before too, I mean, the options for getting lore now are a lot more vast.
Yes.
You have Shere Khan that gets you lore from challenging. You have Pabby that gets you lore from healing. You have the
Merlin.
Yeah, all the Merlins and all of the bounce stuff that's around an Amethyst that you can get lore. When I've lost to that too, where they're at 19 lore. You have to take out the card to win, but if you take out the card, he gets your opponent a lore. And that's the GOAT, right? It's the GOAT. So Merlin GOAT that gets you a lore when they're played, when they quest, and when they leave play. And so you have to take it out because you can't just let it sit there, but then it's going to get you another one. So anyways, there's so many different options that it's definitely changed the meta and made it more diverse. But to your point, I think the top ends of the echelon are still probably going to still stay into the 2, 3, maybe 4 deck range of what's like super good.
Like I think we're still seeing Amber Steel Song is probably.
It's even more annoying with the new Cinderella and Let the Storm Rage On, the Steel Song.
Which I love that, by the way. That might be a future.
It's a fantastic card for sure. I mean, it replaces itself. It does damage on turn 2 because of Cinderella, the new 1-cost Cinderella in Amber. That can sing for 3, so I mean they upgraded the best deck, which seems crazy, but they did it.
And obviously, as the chapters go on, hopefully they'll see what is really working and what isn't, and really work that out. But I think there's, just speaking on that a little bit. Obviously, you and me are not in the most competitive side of things in Lorcana.
No.
But just it seemed like there was a few, I think. There's a different kind of Ruby Amethyst control now. It's really different. So there still is a really meta Ruby Amethyst control.
Yep.
It's just not the same that I played at all. It's a little different.
Yep, I agree. Okay, well, we kind of jumped ahead here. So, I mean, you said we got some good pulls. I mean, we pulled the discard card I mentioned, which is kind of crazy. I guess it's a pull to talk about. After everything we initially got the first day, we only had one enchanted. And I've been looking around the community, and it does seem like the pull rates are a little bit lower.
And it wasn't even from a booster box.
No, it's from a trove.
I myself only pulled... I pulled no enchanteds or any discard or nothing like that. My best pulls were a legendary foil Mufasa and a legendary foil Sisu.
Which, good, can't complain about. But I'm more just making the comments on the difference between Chapter 1 and 2. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Your brother, shout out Ty, got a enchanted Cinderella today at the sealed event. And so we now have 2 enchanteds between all of us combined, like last time. Yep. I just feel like it was a lot weirder of a situation to get them in.
Yeah, really different. Like you got it from a trove. He got it from a sealed, 6 packs.
Yeah, crazy.
And we did all open booster boxes. We all opened the crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and today there was 120 packs opened for the sealed event and 1 enchanted, and so that just seems like really not great odds. I mean, I don't know.
It's really different. It's really different.
And I've seen a lot of ups and downs on conversations on where the pull rate is, and some have said legendary foils are a lot rare. I think we got 6 legendary foils combined between all of us, and only 1 enchanted. So our pull rates say the exact opposite of that. So it's just really hard to tell. But yeah, I mean, so our pulls were good. We got a ton.
We also saw a lot of dual legendary packs.
We did. Yeah, I mean, that was probably my saving grace, was the dual legendary packs.
And there was probably a good 5-6 of those, I'd say.
Probably. That feels safe, because you got a couple and I definitely got a couple.
Yeah, between the both of us.
Yeah.
And those were always a good surprise to see, because usually you'd see the legendaries, the first rare card. Like, I know what that means.
Now that you say it, that didn't even necessarily occur to me. So if the legendary's in the first slot, does that mean there's always one in the second slot too?
For us, yeah, it's been that way. Okay. Every time.
That's a good tip. Because I think you're probably right, but I never thought of it like that. So
every pack that I've seen that's a dual legendary pack has been that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, so we did all of that Friday. We started kind of theory crafting after that. I've been all over the board. I've played a ton of Pixelborn trying to figure it out, and I haven't cracked the code yet on like what works for me and my playstyle. I've played some of the Pabby stuff that pretty much hit the pavement pretty quick. I've played a bunch of the Steel Song, which definitely works. And I like the strategy behind it. It's a lot more fun to play, because you have to like really, really, be very methodical about all of the moves that you're making. But I also don't want to play like the super, super meta stuff either. And I don't have enough Rapunzel still. And Rapunzel is, crazily enough, still the most expensive non-enchanted card out of set 1 and 2. And so you have that to deal with. But yeah, I mean, I think that kind of takes us into the next topic of, we jumped into a little bit already, but we said our play and what we want to play has shifted, pun intended, and I think we're kind of like along the same lines here. We're going to play a bunch of mirror matchups when we play each other.
Are you playing Emerald Steel?
I think so. I think that's I like I said, I like the Amber Steel Song. I don't want it to be like the super meta, like super try-hardy. We've talked about like playing decks that you get the extra league points for whatever, and I'm sure there's one that we can come up with that's Emerald Steel, but I just don't remember what all of those were from the league stuff. But yeah, I mean, given the cards that I got and given what we want to play, I think that's probably going to be somewhere around that range too.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still trying not to, I've done a few trades for stuff. I'm not trying to trade everything away. Like, I've traded the legendaries that I don't think just fit my playstyle overall to kind of shift around. I pulled mostly Emerald Steel, good cards. That's, so it helped me decide there. I pulled, the Rubies legendaries and stuff, and I traded those off. I feel like those just don't fit my personal playstyle, so I feel like I've built myself a little bit of things to switch between if I ever need to.
So we're pretty much on the same boat here. So I'll break it down, and then you can kind of
Absolutely
say why you like it. So it's Emerald Steel, but we're calling it Emerald Steel Damage. And the reason is based on Jake's already mentioned card of the day, the Relentless Beast, which can quest when damage is done. And so it's a lot of like damage ticks from like Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, from Hans, that deals a damage to chosen character when he quests. I am thinking I'm throwing in the new Gargoyle Beast, as I've dubbed him, from the steel set, that deals a damage on play. You also have Let the Storm Rage On that you talked about. You also have the new Robin Hood that we kind of threw in the trash can a little way too early.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite combo cards. So
yeah, it's all about doing chip damage and like letting the Beast Engine run. The problem that I'm having still is I haven't like found the right balance of like other threats to like keep you either in the lead or a really competitive game till you get to that point. Also, card draw is a little on the light side, I would say.
So I think there's a few answers for that. Number one is what you said, Let the Storm Rage On.
But it just replaces itself. So it does. You're not getting additional cards. I get you're getting an action out and you're replacing it. And those are the best cards for sure. Anytime you can do something and replace the card that with the action that you're doing, it's going to be a good card.
I have the baby Cinderella, not the amber one, but the steel one. She draws and discards. I like that, especially in this deck when you're looking for a Relentless Beast, a Selfless Protector Beast, or the Floodborn Cheshire in my deck. I like those. That baby Tinkerbell also has that as well. I also run Jafar, the Floodborn Jafar.
I like the Jafar a lot. Jafar was definitely was it like on the last dump?
It was the last release. Yep.
So I think that one's going to be slept on too because it was such a late release. But I really like that Jafar too.
A lot of like the late release cards I like a lot.
Yeah, there were quite a few of them.
One of those being the Selfless Protector Beast that I like a ton.
Yeah.
But I just think there's enough card draw there. At least for me personally. I'm still I took out Pack Tactics. I might add that back in at some point. I just didn't. For my games, again, I was playing all against real live games, in-person games. I just didn't see the need for those necessarily, especially when I can play another damage card to ready up Beast again.
No, and I understand that. And again, but think about let's go back to the most meta deck, Amber Steel. What if somebody shifts Surfer Stitch turn 5 and turn 6 they play 4 1-drops, and then you play Giant Tink and Pack Tactics and you've got 6 lore.
And I guess that's the thing, is I don't play against those decks.
I know, but that's my point. It's definitely a situational card, but the benefit that it has is that it's inkable, and so you can afford to have a situational card that's inkable in there, where versus a situational card that's uninkable is a lot worse because then it's situational and it's in your hand. There's nothing you can do about it. But if it's too early on to play Pack Tactics, then you just get rid of it. I'm in the same boat. I think I think the potential's there, but I think it's situational, and so it's not the best. But that's again, that's kind of the same boat I'm in too. I really like I think it fits my play style a lot. The only other one to just switch it up here and to talk about another potential of how the game has changed is the Sheer Con stuff with the Ruby and Sapphire item deck.
Absolutely.
So you have I think Popsicle is going to be from the us kind of level and down of people that play, so not the super meta, really smart deck building professionals. I think they'll get Popsicle, but I think Popsicle is really slept on because the same thing that the Storm Rage On has is it replaces itself. So it replaces itself. Nick Wilde can get it back. And then Judy Hopps...
It's only one cost.
Yeah, and Judy Hopps and Flavisham can use their abilities to banish Popsicle and draw off of it. And so it gets you a lot of your own control draw. And I guess real quickly, too, Popsicle is just a one-cost Sapphire item that lets you heal 2 damage from one character. But the synergy with Nick Wilde, shout out Zootopia, lets you retrieve Popsicle from the discard pile, and then you can play it again and then banish it again to keep drawing. And so there's a lot of synergies to continue to draw off of from that respects. I really like the Ruby damage, or the Ruby challenging, I guess. I mean, damage obviously, but more challenging with Shere Khan. Because again, your opponent is most likely playing a game to quest to win of some sort. And if your game is to challenge to win, meaning you have Shere Khan, maybe 1, maybe 2 on the board, then you challenge 3 or 4 times and you got a boatload of lore from slowing your opponent down.
So I haven't seen that as much. Is that Ruby Steel? Like, what is
Ruby Sapphire is what I've been playing with that, because you have the card draw and the recursion from the popsicle and all of the stuff there. You also have the ink ramp with Sapphire, and now that you have some recursion and card draw, that makes it a little stronger. And then those you've also got from the new set in Sapphire, you've got a little bit of other like cool stuff that you can get from. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the app real quick. The Cogsworth are like incredible too. The Cogsworth, the talking clock that lets reckless cards quest. I think that's a little overlooked, especially with Felicia, the 1 cost 3
Absolutely.
strength reckless character, and Ruby. And then the Cogsworth grandfather clock is insane with the ward and unwind ability. So he's got ward, but then he also has the unwind ability, which is basically like Aurora from set 1, where he grants all the other cards on the board resist +1. So if you have 1 of them on the board, that's pretty annoying. If you have 2 of them on the board, unless you have like really, really, really big bodies like Maui or Maleficent Monstrous Dragon or something like that, you're not taking anything out. Like that means you would, if something has 4 willpower, you would have to do 6 damage. There's not many cards that do 6 damage.
And that's like, if that's honestly like the cards I think we need the most is more AoE damage, not AoE removal, AoE damage to deal with resist. I think
it's really tough, because if you have 2 of them, Grab Your Swords does nothing.
Yep, absolutely.
Let the Storm Rage on does nothing. Like all of those damage cards, like I was playing the Amber Steel deck a lot on Pixelborn. I kind of mentioned that already. Like I was just getting throttled by it because there was nothing I could do, because all of my damage cards were useless.
Yeah, and that's when you really have to shift around, and like Beast becomes a challenge card all of a sudden. Like stuff like that. Just you need to really shift what you're doing and really think through it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm tinkering around with as well. I think all of the Zootopia cards, like Flavisham and Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde, are pretty cool. I think you've all got some new items like the sardine can and the popsicle and the gumbo pot that can help heal. And then in the Ruby side, you've got the Felicia that I mentioned already. The Lady Tremaine, I think, is very interesting. She makes you choose which of your own characters to banish, so ward becomes a non-issue. And I actually had a really good play with that. I can't remember what card it was that banished, but I think it was Cinderella Stouthearted, the big steel one, where that was the only one on the board. I play Lady Tremaine, and they have no choice but to banish their own character when that one's really hard to remove to begin with. So I think I've seen a lot of Lady Tremaine played over Dragonfire. I like the Queen of Hearts Rush character. I like Shere Khan. I like the Scar. It's uninkable, and you've already got a pretty high uninkable count, so I haven't been playing him in the Ruby deck I've been playing. I've been using Maui instead, and then Dinner Bell to draw off of is pretty fun too.
How many Floodborns are usually in that deck? Which is another topic I want to talk
about. Cogsworth Grandfather Clock. I don't think I have the Floodborn Queen of Hearts anymore. I think I just have the small one. But
Tremaine.
So Lady Tremaine, Cogsworth. Those might be the only 2 in that one.
Okay.
I don't have Basil. I don't have. What in chapter 1 are there any? I don't have Jasmine. I don't have.
Heroic Outlaw?
No, I want to work in Heroic Outlaw. So like 3 or 4, I think. And yeah, we have kind of chatted on that a little bit, but we haven't gotten like super deep into it, so I should probably talk about that. I think there's a fine line on how many Floodborns you can have, because there's definitely a benefit to shifting, but there's also a negative. You have to keep in mind that you also lose a card on the board, so you're not gaining additional bodies by shifting.
That's a big change from chapter 1 to 2. Like, you didn't really even think about that in chapter 1. Now, chapter 2, it's becoming a real Because, I mean, there's 4 per ink now, or 6 per ink now.
Yeah, there's so many that you have the option where if, like, you're playing all of them to shift, then that means your cheaper cards are all just shift targets. They might not be the best cheaper cards. It's just those are the shift targets. And so, like, the initial Steel Song deck I was playing, I didn't have Tinkerbell, Tiny Tactician. I didn't have the Cinderella from Steel. I just had the Cinderella from Amber, the new 1 cost. I had Stitch to shift on Stitch Rockstar, but you have to be very careful with how you're building that, because there are good, like, low cost, high value cards, but if you're moving those to the side to pick up the shift targets, then I think you also can hurt yourself from that respect too.
Yeah, like I'm running the Jafar Floodborn without the 1 cost.
Yeah, I'm doing that
or the
too.
2 cost.
I think I've done. I might have 2 copies actually, because he's evasive on his turn.
Yeah,
and so I like that effect. And again, he has, like, that has an ability for you that's beneficial. But yeah, sorry to cut you off. But yeah, I agree with that one too.
I really enjoy the 3 cost because I play the Cheshire Floodborn. I enjoy the meta aggro Emerald Cheshire from the first set. And I really love that as a shift target, because, you know, your opponent really has to direct, like, they're kind of scared of it a little bit, because they know it's coming, but they don't necessarily want to full on attack it, especially when I'm taking out their other cards with direct damage. So you kind of force them into a wall a little bit. So I enjoy shifting on that a lot.
I like that. I like that play a lot too. And that one's a different story, because when you're shifting Cheshire, you get a massive benefit turn 1, because the assumption is that you're going to then exert Big Cheshire to banish a character that's already damaged.
Also, there's a few Floodborn that drop 3 ink down, and Cheshire is one of them.
I was going to mention that too. I think that anytime that you're losing 3 cost to shift, that's a big advantage too. Like the Queen in Amber shift 2 is bonkers. Yeah, like actually bonkers, because I doubt you've played it because nobody in your house plays Amber, but imagine shift 2, you can then challenge or quest, and when she quests, she gives 4 strength to another one of your cards, so your 1 cost now has 5 strength, their 1 cost now has 0 strength, and you can go challenge for free. Or if you're like in a really big pinch, you can sing Grab Your Swords, you can sing A Whole New World, you can sing whatever else until your heart's content on turn 2. Like, that's just unheard of.
She basically has like a built-in kind of singer ability a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And I saw a little bit of that today at our sealed event.
You saw somebody shift Queen?
Yeah.
Well, that person has some really good pulls.
I mean, I pulled the same thing, to be completely honest.
Oh, well.
But,
nice.
Not to brag.
Nice.
But a little brag.
Nice.
But I mean, I just think that, like, for that example, dropping 3 ink is really advantageous and really helpful for those, like, specific events.
Yeah. No, and in general, I think anytime you drop 3, it's really helpful. But yeah, I mean, I think this conversation, like, shows you the different experience we had this weekend. Like, Chapter 1 release, we're playing with starter decks. We're trying to make sure we understand the rules.
I found a broken deck. Quote unquote.
Yeah,
quote unquote broken deck.
We thought we broke the rules like day 2 because we didn't know what we were doing, or really like all of the ins and outs of strategy to combat what other people are doing. But now we're like mainly spending our time theory crafting and trying to find a good deck because we want to like have fun in League. But I take that we'll take a little aside on that before we go back to Chapter 1 stuff. But both of us said before we started, and we said we need to stop this conversation and do it when we're recording, because you had a really good Ruby Amethyst deck that you basically had it filled out with all of the like massive cards. But you said you didn't have a bunch of fun playing it. All of the stuff that I played in League Chapter 1, I didn't really love playing either. And so I think that's why we're both on that Emerald Steel we talked about, because we want to play stuff that's fun too.
No, I love this new deck to death, and I really want to work on it. Like, Ruby Amethyst, I was like, okay, what's the meta list? Fine, I'll do that. I have those cards. I'll go for it. This, I want to build out as much as I possibly can and make the absolute perfect Emerald Steel for me. and I've been pulling stuff in and out. I want it to really work well. I really I love this deck a lot more than any other deck I've played.
Yeah, I played a ton of aggro because that's like all I could really do because I didn't have the cards I wanted for chapter 1, and so aggro's not really that. I mean, I think it's a little more fun in this chapter with the bounce from Merlin Mem and Pinocchio and stuff. That makes it a little more fun. But in chapter 1, it was I'm gonna play Flynn Rider and I'm gonna quest for 2, and I'm gonna play Cheshire Cat and I'm gonna quest for 2.
And I'm gonna top deck the entire game.
And I'm going to play Hans and I'm gonna quest for 3, and I'm gonna play Cusco and I'm gonna quest for 3. Like that's all it was. Like there was no strategy involved. It was just hoping you get the right cards in the right order. But I think there's more like setting things up and making sure you have board control going into Beast. A lot more like it makes you think a lot more about what you're doing, which is why I think I'm on the same boat as you on what I want to play this go around.
And I think that I might discover something else new by the end of the chapter. I don't know, like if I'll discover a new playstyle that I really enjoy. Like going in, I talked about how my project's going to be the Royals. That completely fell off.
Well,
like
my Pabby deck's gone. My John deck's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the same boat. It's just funny how you can actually get going with these and just completely blow up your plans. And then, I mean, I guess what you draw or what you pull
plays a big part.
Some of that
plays a big part.
Some of that too. But okay, well, final thoughts. We've kind of talked about a lot of the differences. I mean, obviously, we're way more into it this time and trying to build decks for League. Everybody pretty much knows what they're doing now, and so we're trying to stay on that same pace. But yeah,
just overall a little bit more serious about it, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's the overall vibe I'm getting from chapter 2. Is just I think everything's a little bit more like, okay, game on. Like, let's really get into it.
The biggest positive I think I've seen so far is the amount of people that have been able to get cards.
Absolutely.
Like it seems like a ton. So I'm hoping that lull we had there for like 6 weeks is kind of gone, and there will be a bunch of people. And our local store said, without like full details, that it's going to be very much more of a constructed League night, if I understood that right. And so like predetermined matchups and stuff, maybe. I don't know, like some sort of ladder. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how this goes in with it. I think that's good and bad. Like we're definitely into this and I love it, but just like that, mind off, just full happiness that we had in chapter 1 is not the same.
And that hurts me a little bit, but in no means do I plan on stopping playing this game anytime soon. No means am I not as interested as I was. I just think that it's just a little bit more serious about it. Like I think everyone's just a little bit more hard thinking about it. Like I'll whenever I see a card, like a new card I haven't thought about much, I'll just immediately think of all the strategies and all the synergies and the decks I can fit it in and stuff like that. So I just think that my mind is just wrapped around Lorcana so much that I don't think of it as much as like a happy, fun time.
I'm in the same boat. I agree with that 100% for sure.
And yeah, this still is a fun time. It still is a great time. And part of that probably has to do that I haven't played like Zach one-on-one.
Yeah, we haven't. We have like I said when we started, we haven't had a chance to play yet. We were so busy, and you've been so busy, and
so
the holidays are coming up. I mean, so yeah, just things happen, and we haven't been able to. But we'll get there, and you'll beat me, and it'll be fun.
Hopefully, I'll beat you.
Okay, yeah. So with that said, let's wrap this one up, and appreciate everyone for hanging out and coming with us. Let us know your thoughts on chapter 2 and what you think. Were you able to get cards? What do you want to play? What are your favorite parts? What do you like the most? If you have any questions about chapter 2, drop us a post or a follow and let us know, or email us, whatever the case might be, and we'll address it on some upcoming episodes.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Thanks everyone. Bye.